This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories. And welcome to another episode of the Clone Wars Recap and Review. This week I'm going over the Onderon arc, and I'm excited to do this. This is a pretty interesting arc that helps set up the rebellion, so let's go straight into it. The Jedi Council is contacted by the rebel movement on the world of Onderon, which is under separatist control, and they ask the Jedi for help taking their world back. The Jedi are extremely reluctant to do this, since they would not be able to legally interact with them, since it is legally part of the Confederacy, and they have worries about helping what could be a terrorist group. Anakin gives a suggestion to the Council for them to employ a new program to help take back separatist worlds, for them to go to them and begin to train the members of small rebel groups to be able to take back their homeworlds. The Jedi are reluctant to do this, but do see a potential and decide to use Onderon as a testing ground. Anakin is assigned to go, with this being his idea, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, wanting to make sure things are done right, goes and helps to observe. So does Anakin's apprentice Ahsoka Tano, and Captain Rex goes with them to help train the Onderonians in combat. Going to the rebel camp after landing on the planet, they meet up with many prominent members of the rebellion and meet Saw Gerrera, his sister Stella Gerrera, and Lux Bonteri, who is trying to retake his homeworld from the Separatists after all they did to his family. And they begin to train through different tactics, including how to take down an AAT tank and take down the destroyer droids. And at the Andronian capital of Isis, the Separatist forces have managed to track the shuttle that dropped off the Jedi and Clone Trooper and use it to help them narrow down where the rebels are and send out a force to fight them. Lux and Saw begin to have disagreements and fight over things, with Saw being very overprotective of his sister, and Lux clearly having a thing for her, and this puts him in conflict. As they are training to disable the destroyer droids, they are doing decently well. Some of them do better than others. Continuing practicing on different things, including sharpshooting, Anakin notices that Ahsoka is being a little distracted by the relationship between Lux and Stella, and he tells her just to make sure to be a Jedi and that she knows what being a Jedi means. And before they can really do anything, they are ambushed by the Separatist forces that managed to track down the exact location of the camp. As the battle begins, they start to use the tactics that the Jedi and Rex taught them and begin to successfully fight them back. The Jedi only help defend and do not go on the offensive, and watch as the tactics that they so recently taught to them are used to push back the Separatist forces. With their victory, the Jedi believe the rebels are ready for the next step to do small attacks in ISIS, and they go using disguises to infiltrate the city and begin their plans. Their first attack is against the Onderonian royal carriage, and the attack is done in this town square. Taking down the droids, they do manage to get it, and the king of Onderon, Sanjay Raj, is not there, and he is extremely furious at this and believes it to be an attempt against his life, and he wants to be doing more to take down the rebels and begins to conspire with Dooku to do more to take them out. The rebels return to their base, and although they celebrate their victory, the Jedi warn them that even though they are doing victories, they need to make sure to get the public on their side because currently they are just spreading fear, and if they don't have the public on their side, this plan will never work. Saw Gerrera is very confused by this and just wants to continue with the attacks, but his sister quickly realizes that they, the Jedi, are right, and this is the best way to do this. So they begin to plan a next attack and decide to strike against the power station to take out the droids. And after this, the Jedi generally have to return to Coruscant. They ask Ahsoka to stay behind and only act as an advisor. She can't be planning things out or be leading the attacks, but she could stay behind to help them out and do what she can. But if it begins to look like a failure, she has to leave. And Ahsoka does just that, helping the rebels and advising them as they scope out the power grid and begin to figure out what they could do to take it. She also assists them as the plan begins, and they begin to once again use the tactics, taking out the droidicas that are attacking them. They then manage to go for the AAT, which is sent after them. Going into it, they take control of the tank and use it to fire upon the power grid to destroy it, using that to take out the droid's main source of power. They know it's just a matter of time before the droids fully lose power and can't be recharged. The Jedi and Rex come through in hologram form to congratulate them on the victory and telling them that they do need a leader. At the same time, King Rash is contacted by Dooku, and he introduces Rash to a super tactical droid named General Kalani, and he's going to be sent to help him fight the rebels. And back at the rebel base, they ultimately decide on Stila Guerrera being their leader, and all realize this, except for Saw, who is a little furious and runs off. The rebels continue to do attacks throughout Onderon and go and plan an attack against a battalion of droids in their transport, managing to take them out. They then give a message trying to rally the people of Onderon and give them hope. This begins to work as they call out King Rash as a traitor to the planet and using Stella as the point of inspiration. King Rash is still furious about this, and with the tactical droid General Kalani arriving, he assures him that he will be able to draw them out, and the military commander for Onderon, General Heldon, is thinking that they need the Onderon Royal Militia to be using against them, and this will stop the rebels' attack since they're doing it against droids. But Kalani disagrees and thinks that this is a bad idea. They then bring the former king of Onderon that was overthrown when Rash took power. The former king Dedump is being accused for being behind the rebels, and he just simply points out that this is the will of the people, and even if he wanted to be behind it, he couldn't because of how he was imprisoned and cut off from his people. Rash does not believe this and orders for the execution of Dindup, and this news quickly reaches the rebels, who begin to discuss what to do about it. And after turning Saw Gerrera is very adamant that they have to go and rescue the king immediately, while Stella believes that it is smarter to rescue him in public. Ahsoka points out that the king's death would make him a martyr and help their cause, but they want to go and rescue the king. Through this, Saw goes off to try and rescue him on his own, as the rest of the rebels begin to plan out their attack. While doing this, Lux tries to comfort Stella about her brother, but she quickly pushes away, not interested at this time with being with anyone. Lux accepts this and goes away. Meanwhile, Ahsoka contacts Anakin and Obi-Wan and begins to discuss with them how she thinks that them trying to save the king is too ambitious and will cost them too high of a price. The Jedi tell her that she's only there to be in an advisory role and not to let her emotions take her over, and remind her if things start to go south that she has to abandon this mission. Saw breaks into Dendip's prison and tells him that he's going to be breaking him out of here. Dendip is disappointed and explains how he's originally neutral, and this led to the Separatists taking over the world, but is surprised and overjoyed that the Jedi are helping the rebels. Agreeing to go with Saw, they try to escape, but learn that there was a one-way shield used to set a trap for any rebels, and this is used to capture Saw and bring him to the execution alongside the king. Back at the rebels' base, they continue to discuss their plan, and they are quickly devastated to learn that Saw has been captured. And though Lux wants to also rescue him, Stella points out that they don't have the resources to rescue him, and it'd be far more important for their cause to rescue the king. And Ahsoka does agree with them and tells them that she isn't allowed to interfere and can only be there to observe. Back at the Separatist base of operations, Saw is being tortured by Kalani, and Tandon, who is horrified by this, demands for them to stop interrogation, but Kalani disagrees and continues to do it, and wants him to be executed alongside the king. Taldon, after Kalani leaves, goes and talks to Saw and wants to start to know about the rebels and begins to argue with Saw. And Saw points out that he will be a slave to the Separatists, and this begins to make him reassess his loyalties and everything that is going on. The next morning at the execution, the rebels are prepared to set up as they begin to watch King Rash set up the former king to be executed. Seeing him placed in a guillotine, they begin their attack, and through it they are quickly surrounded by Separatist forces and think all that is lost. But quickly they are reinforced by Tandon, who is furious with the Separatist treatment of his people and him and the Royal Militia go and begin to take on the Separatist forces and help the rebels escape. In the chaos, Ahsoka decides to reveal herself and uses this to help cause a good enough distraction for them to escape. The rebels are victorious, managing to rescue both Saw and the King, and having forces to be able to combat the Separatists. Ahsoka now goes and contacts the Jedi and tells them that everything has been exposed and the Separatists know that the Jedi are assisting them, and asks if the Jedi Council could help them. Although the Jedi don't know if it's possible, they're going to do their best. Using this to their full advantage, they begin to push up attacks against the Separatists, first using a hologram of King Dendip to address the people of Onderon, telling them of the rebels' intentions and that they are on the people's side. He also pushes Stella Guerrera as the leader of it and gives his full support to her. And although the rebels are doing good, their forces are too large now to conceal in the city and move to the Underonian mountains. And they begin to be a lot closer and see real hope in liberating their world. Through it, Lux and Saw begin to be on more friendly terms, and with Stella being fully pushed into a leadership role, she fully commits to everything and decides to give Lex a kiss just in case as they go for their attack to try and take their world back. Ahsoka and Lex go in and begin to continue towards the attack, and through their attacks, there is smoke rising from the city, and King Rash is furious. He demands more assistance from General Clowney, who says that he is bringing a new droid gunship that will be able to take out the rebels easily. And the rebels are doing decently well until the newly revealed HMP droid gunship begins to attack them, easily wiping them out and using its heavy shields and heavy weaponry to push the rebels back. The fight is going poorly, and they are forced to retreat. Ahsoka contacts the Jedi, asking them for help, and although they do want to, Obi-Wan says that they cannot, while Anakin heavily disagrees and says that they need to be able to find a way, and the two Jedi begin to discuss things back on Coruscant and quickly realize that they need to help, but they need to find a way to do it where the Jedi are not directly involved. So they go to their old semi-ally, Hondo Ohnaka, and ask him to deliver missiles to the rebels for good pay. Hondo agrees and does so, going towards the rebels. But the rebels, not knowing this yet, try to plan out for what they can do and that the Jedi may be able to help, although it's not guaranteed. So is grateful to the Jedi, and they begin to plan out what they could do. When they hear a ship coming, they are frightened at first it's a separatist, but are relieved when Hondo comes, giving them the missile launchers. He hands them out, and as the attack from the separatists begin, they use this to their advantage as Hondo flees. The droids begin to attack, and as they blast through the base, they get their missile launchers ready, beginning to take down the droids. They are at a bad point as King Dendip is chased down by a commando droid, but Stella is able to rescue him just in time. They are nearly hit by one of the droid gunships, which is taken down, and although Dendam has managed to get to safety, Stella Guerrera falls and is hanging from the side of the cliff as Lux tries to save her. Ahsoka also approaches and tries to use the Force to do the same, but the gunship that was recently taken out, using its last bit of power, fires upon them, and this breaks the concentration of Ahsoka for just a moment as Stella falls to her death. This devastates the rebels, but they manage to push on, taking out the gunships, and this leads to the Separatists believing this world is lost. Dooku orders for the world to be abandoned, and King Rash doesn't want to. Kalani executes Rash and goes to abandon the world, leaving it to the rebels and the Republic. With the rebel victory, the people do mourn Stella's loss at a giant memorial service, and the Jedi go to attend this and welcome the planet of Onderon back into the Republic. Lux, seeing that the Republic is the best option out there, tells Ahsoka that he is joining the Republic and will be the senator for the planet at the King's request. And although the planet mourns, they do see a bright future ahead. And yeah, honestly, this is a really interesting arc for the future of Star Wars specifically. This is used to set up the beginning phases of the Rebel Alliance and how it will eventually form. And it is kind of ironically funny that Anakin Skywalker, who will soon become Darth Vader, will be partially responsible, no matter what, for creating the rebellion, whether it's more directly like in The Force Unleashed or extremely indirectly through here. No matter what, Vader is technically the downfall of the Empire even before he will eventually betray Palpatine. And this arc was, honestly, it was a really good arc. It is not my favorite overall, but it is an interesting story. You get, as I said, the most interesting part of the setup of the Rebel Alliance at a really early date in the Clone Wars. Well, not really early, it's towards the end of the second year, but it is still extremely early compared to when the rebellion really takes off nearly 20 years later. And it is interesting to see how Saw Gerrera is continued to be used after this, and just how so much of him is set up here, and he used these lessons all in the wrong way to become what the Jedi feared the Andronians would be originally, a terrorist group. And it is interesting to see how it just evolves from here, and just really interesting through that. But the arc itself is really interesting and has some nice moments. It is pretty cool to also see the first appearance of the super tactical droid and the first timeline appearance of the droid gunship, and they did a great job with that. It's also awesome to have Hondo appear just for a little bit, and I'll never deny a little more Hondo, which you especially see with the next arc, and that is all just really interesting. But now I think it's time to go into my ranking, and my ranking of this arc is a 96.3, which puts it just above Boba Fett's Revenge and just a little bit below the episode Arc Troopers. And I think this is exactly where I would rank it and is a really good spot for it. When I was looking at them, I knew it was going to be in the upper 90s, but not the top of it. And looking through the arcs, I think it belongs right here, just over Boba Fett's Revenge, which I think it's just a little bit better than, but not as amazing as the episode Arc Troopers, which just has some amazing moments in it. And I really think this is where it belongs, and definitely deserves in the upper part of Clone Wars episodes, and is a really interesting arc. This doesn't even take into account the fact that this is also supposed to be one of the more political arcs of it in terms of messaging with it, showing some allegory towards just how the U.S. is kind of backed some groups that would turn out to be against them, but in a sort of ironic twist, it is kind of in the opposite way, where obviously in the US you would see these groups as really bad, and generally they do turn out to be bad, being terrorist groups, but this is the beginning of the Rebel Alliance, which would be striking out against the Empire. And I don't want to go into too much of the political stuff, but there is those allusions in here, and that is kind of interesting with it, and how it actually turns out kind of differently than things that did happen in US history and, well, the real world. But I honestly do want to know what you think. Please let me know in the comments, and I'll see you on the next episode of Legends and Theories. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.